Hey everyone, and welcome. So you're doing business in Turkey, right? Well, that means you absolutely need to know how to get out cleanly. Today, we're going to break down the entire process of company liquidation. And believe me, this is a critical step that can protect your brand, your finances, and your directors. Let's dive right in.
So what are we really talking about here? When you decide to close a company in Turkey, is it just some paperwork, a simple checkbox you tick, or are we talking about a full-on legal maze? Let's unpack that, because honestly, the answer has some pretty major implications for you.
Because here's the deal. Exiting a market, especially one like Turkey, isn't as simple as just closing the door and walking away. It's the strategic move. A clean, proper exit protects your brand's reputation, for sure. But more importantly, it shields your directors from personal liability. If you get it wrong, well, those protections can vanish.
All right, so if we're going to navigate this legal maze, we're going to need a map. And that map starts with a few key numbers. Think of them as the vital signs of the whole process, the core stats you just have to know before we even begin the journey.
First up, the timeline. And this is a big one. You're looking at a commitment of 6 to 9 months for a standard liquidation. This is not an overnight thing. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and you absolutely have to factor that time frame into your planning.
So what's the rule book for this marathon? It's all right here, the Turkish Commercial Code, or the TCC. Literally every step we're about to discuss, every single deadline, every requirement, it's all governed by this one piece of legislation. It is the absolute authority on the matter.
And finally, we have to talk about the key player, a tasfiye memuru. That's the official Turkish term for a liquidator, and one must be appointed. This person, or entity, basically takes the keys to the company. They are in charge of managing the entire shutdown from start to finish.
Okay, so we've got the timeline, the rulebook, and the main player. Now, let's get into the how. Let's walk through the actual roadmap. There's a mandatory 4-step process you have to follow, and this is your path to a successful, clean exit in Turkey. And here are the 4 stages, all laid out. It starts, logically enough, with the internal decision to close up shop. Then you make it official with a public announcement. After that comes a legally required waiting period for creditors. And finally, you wrap everything up in the settlement phase. We're going to break down each one of these right now.
Let's kick things off with step 1. This is really the official starting gun. The company's General Assembly, which just means the shareholders, has to pass a formal resolution to dissolve the company. And in that very same meeting, they officially appoint that liquidator we just talked about. This is the first real, legally binding action.
Okay, so you're appointing a liquidator. And this is where a huge question pops up for pretty much every international company. Can you just appoint one of your own executives, a foreigner, to be the liquidator?
And the answer is yes, but, and this is a huge but, they must have a valid residence permit and be physically living in Turkey. Now, this one requirement is often a complete non-starter for foreign executives. And honestly, it's precisely why most international firms just say, you know what, we're hiring a local professional to handle this.
Moving on to step 2, you've got to make it public. The new liquidator registers the decision to dissolve. Then, they publish 3 separate announcements in the official Trade Registry Gazette, spaced 1 week apart. This isn't just for show. This is the formal, legal way you notify all potential creditors that the clock has officially started ticking.
That first announcement kicks off step 3, the waiting period. You can think of this as a legally mandated timeout. Its whole purpose is to give anyone the company owes money to, the creditors, the time and the official opportunity to come forward and submit their claims. And trust me, you absolutely cannot skip this step.
And that brings us to the final active stage, step 4, settlement. This is where the liquidator really rolls up their sleeves and gets to work. They start selling off company assets to generate cash. And with that cash, they pay off every single liability, from suppliers to taxes, until they can prepare a final balance sheet that shows a big, fat 0. This is where the company's financial life is officially closed out.
Okay, so that's the what, the 4 basic steps. Seems straightforward enough, right? Well, not so fast. Now we have to talk about the how. Because in a process like this, how you do it is every bit as important, maybe even more important, than the steps themselves. And this is exactly why professional help is so critical. First off, that whole residency problem we talked about, with an expert liquidator, problem solved right off the bat. Tax-wise, they know how to navigate things like Turkey's reduced corporate tax rate for liquidation profits, which can save you money you might otherwise just forfeit. But most importantly, their job is to ensure 100% compliance, creating a legal firewall that protects your directors from personal liability.
And this just lays it all out, doesn't it? You've really got two paths. The DIY approach comes with the massive risk of personal liability for company debts, really costly tax errors, and just getting lost in a sea of bureaucracy. The guided path, on the other hand, leads to director protection, tax efficiency, and guaranteed legal compliance. The contrast is, well, it's pretty stark.
So let's bring this all home. The ultimate goal, the whole point of all this, is to secure a clean exit. So what's the one thing you absolutely need to take away from our explainer today?
It really just boils down to this one idea. The right approach is the difference between a year of legal headaches and a clean, professional exit. That single line just perfectly captures the stakes involved. That's the choice you're making.
So, I'm going to leave you with this question. Now that you've seen the roadmap and you understand the very real risks, take a hard look at your own plans. Is your exit strategy really as secure as it needs to be? Thanks for watching.